We earlier had a discussion on documentation under GST. As part of our further discussions are concerned in terms of documentation under GST. Yes, we will learn the next step relating to documentation under GST. A small run through. Tax invoice is a document issued by a supplier at the time of supply of goods or services which are leviable to tax. There is a specified time limit within which a tax invoice has to be raised, and a tax invoice, be it for goods, be it for services, has to be raised before or within the time prescribed, which is called a statutory time limit. If that statutory time limit is adhered, yes, good. Else, that day will be treated as the day in which it is to be issued. A revised tax invoice that is applicable in case of assessee where their effective date of registration is retrospective, and from the effective date of registration till the day in which registration is granted, for that period, if they want to issue invoice, then yes, they can issue invoice within 1 month from the date of effective date of from the 1 month within the day in which registration is granted. A document which will be issued by them will be called as revised tax invoice, followed by bill of supply, a document which is issued by a taxable person when he is engaged in supply of exempted goods or exempted services which are not leviable to tax, then yes, bill of supply will be. If a person receives a refund amount, if a person receives a advance amount, to record that he has received an advance, one document will be issued by either a supplier of goods or a supplier of service, which is called as receipt voucher. Similarly, in case the advance which is being received by a person is returned back to the recipient, then a document will be raised called as receipt voucher. Then the refund is returned, then it will be called as refund voucher, not receipt voucher, refund voucher. To record all those unregistered procurement of goods from unregistered person. Similarly, to record all those procurement of services from unregistered person, yes, we have a invoice that will be raised, which will be treated as a self-tax invoice. So these are all some of those documents which need to be raised by a taxable person. Now, once a person raises all these documents, it is evident that he is complying with various provisions of the GST law. Similarly, in case an advance payment is made to a person, at the time when the payment is made, yes, a document is issued which will be treated as your payment voucher, followed by delivery challan, a document that will be used whenever goods are moved for other than supply, or goods are sent for the purpose of job work, or any liquid gas that are being transported, as a delivery challan will be used. A tax invoice by an input service distributor. A tax invoice by an input service distributor will be issued in cases where tax invoice by input service distributor will be issued in cases where an input service distributor who want to distribute input services credit, then a document will be issued by that person, specific person. A credit note is increased a credit note is issued to decrease your value of supply, and a debit note is issued to increase the value of supply. So broadly, these are all the different types of documents that are going to be raised. Now, in case if it is a goods transport agency, a consignment note will be issued. In case of banking company, issuing the serial number, that is chronological number, no invoice number. Serial number is not mandatory in case of a banking company. Followed by, in case export of goods with payment of tax, export of goods without payment of tax, those information are captured as part of your GST return associated. So broadly, this is your working. Section 31 and 34 discuss about it. Section 31 and 34 comes out and says, this is how it will be planned. Moving forward, Section 31 comes out and discuss the time limit in a more specific way. Comes out and discuss in a more specific way. Where tax invoice issued by a supplier, as we earlier discussed, the invoice can be issued before or at the time of removal or at the time of making the goods available. Similarly, in case of services also, invoice can be issued before or at the time of removal. Or invoice can be issued before or within 30 days from your completion of service in case of normal services. Other than banking and financial services, 45 days. So banking and financial services, 45 days. Normal services within 30 days. All this we have discussed. Revised invoice can be issued within 30 days or technically within 1 month from the date of issuance of registration certificate, DIRC. Or a value of supply is going to be less than 200 rupees. No tax invoice individually has to be issued. They can consolidate it and make it as a single invoice. All these are all known. Sir, what are we going to learn new? See, for every document what we discussed, okay, there are going to be some statutory, compliances. These are all called as components of a document. If all this is present only, we will say that document is complete. If all this is present only, we will say a document is complete. So whether those documents are all present or not, or those contents are all present or not, need to be decided by us. Just give me a minute, 1 minute. Some non-adjustment here. Okay, set well. Our discussion is like this. In case of a tax invoice, so the point for our discussion is, in case of a tax invoice, what would happen? I think great. What are all going to be components? What are the components of a tax invoice? We will discuss. For a minute, think every document in the GST will contain certain basic information. What are those basic information, sir? Name of the supplier, name of the recipient, address of the supplier, address of recipient, GST number of supplier, GST number of recipient. Date of that document, a unique serial number for that document. 8 information will be constant. நீங்க எந்த டாக்குமெண்ட் வேணாலும் எடுங்க. This 8 information is constant. Name, address, and your GSTN number of supplier. Name, address, GSTN number of recipient, if the recipient is registered. Unregistered, name and address, matters there. GST number will not be there. Followed by date of issue of that document. If it is invoice, invoice. If it is bill of supply, bill of supply. Date. Followed by that document should come up with a unique number which can be maximum of 16 digits. 16 characters it can be, 16 digits it can be. So you have whatever numbering you want. We will not bother as a government. As a business, they can have whatever number they want. They can say 001/1819, 004/1819. என்ன வேணா வச்சுக்கலாம் number. But it has to be chronologically. See, நேத்து அடிச்ச கடைசி இன்வாய்ஸ் 33 னா இன்னைக்கு 34 தான் ஆரம்பிக்கும். So every year they should start with the consecutive fresh serial number, and it has to be continued for that year together fully. In case of goods are sent to unregistered person, the address of delivery and the state code is required. Now, that too, if to that unregistered person, if a single bill value exceeds 50,000. Like how, if the value is less than 200 rupees, you are not required to collect, you are not required to issue invoice. Same way, government puts a condition. If a person value in a single invoice exceeds 50,000, where the goods are going to be delivered, address of delivery is important. From the unregistered person. From the unregistered person, the address of delivery is important when it comes to your unregistered person. Where the invoice value, in a single invoice, if you buy goods from a store up to 40,000 rupees, they will not ask. Let me repeat it. B2B transaction, like B2C transaction. Unregistered person, நீங்களும் நானும் கடையில போய் வாங்கினா unregistered person. வேற ஒரு ட்ரேடர் போய் கடையில வாங்கினாருன்னா registered person. So when a transaction is registered person to registered person, recipient's information will be available. We are now talking of unregistered person. In case of unregistered person, where the value of taxable supply is more than 50,000 rupees in a bill, then the details of the recipient is required. Normally, less than 50,000 rupees, you will not ask much detail and all. Just for a minute, think you go to a supermarket and buy goods for 5,000 rupees, grocery items, everything and all for that month. They will not ask from which place you are coming, what is your bill, all that and all, what is your name, all that and all. But in case if you are going to buy more than 50,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees in single invoice, at that time they'll ask this information. What is your name? From where you are coming? Give your address. Why, sir? It is told. It is told. If anybody going to buy more than 50,000 rupees, then yes, it would be asking for those information, and complying with that information becomes important for the assessment. HSN code. So HSN code means nothing great. All those 8-digit number available for the product, what product they are going to do, that HSN code, Harmonized System of Nomenclature. Let me repeat, Harmonized System of Nomenclature, HSN. That HSN code will be available. HSN code followed by HSN code of goods, or similarly accounting code of services, HSN code or accounting code. Further to discuss on this, what is the description of goods, quantity, value, rate of tax, place of supply, very importantly, then address of delivery, and whether liable under reverse charge or not, digital signature. So look out this document. If you could look to this document, GSTN, name and address, state of the supplier, name, address, state code of the recipient. In case goods are going to be delivered at different location, that location address, description of goods, HSN, quantity, unit, rate, value, discount, taxable value, CGST, SGST, IGST, then followed by your signature, okay? And what is the place of supply, whether to decide intra-state supply or interstate supply. Then reverse charge applicable or not applicable. If they say reverse charge, yes, then the recipient will be liable to pay tax. Supplier of the invoice will not pay tax. If they say reverse charge, no, then the respective supplier will pay tax, recipient will not. So, in case of, in our first example, we are going to take it up. We will, based on that, we will decide. So, let me repeat it. இந்த மாதிரி தான் இன்வாய்ஸ் இருக்கணும்னு சொல்லலை கவர்மெண்ட், பட் இந்த இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் எல்லாம் இருக்கணும்ன்றாங்க. நேம், அட்ரஸ், GSTN number of supplier, name, address, GSTN number of recipient, followed by 16-digit invoice number. In case a single invoice is for a value more than 50,000 rupees, single invoice for a value more than 50,000 rupees, details as to from where the goods was, to where the goods are going, who is the purchaser, those information all will be captured. Plus description of goods, quantity, HSN, GST, all information will be captured relating to a relating to a tax invoice. So these are all the components of a tax invoice. Very interesting to note, these components will get repeated except for some small differences in the components. Components of a bill of supply, a straight opposite of a tax invoice is a bill of supply. A very interesting to note here is something very interesting to note here on this activities are, in case of a bill of supply, bill of supply is going to be issued for a transaction where it is going to be a exempted supply. If it is a exempted supply of goods, or it is going to be a exempted supply of services. Let me repeat, exempted supply of goods, or it is going to be a exempted supply of services. Then no doubt, this bill of supply will be issued. And bill of supply contains what information? As usual, basic information, name, address, the GST number of the supplier, and if in case it is a recipient is a registered recipient, name, address, GST number of the recipient, date of issue of invoice, invoice date, invoice number, HSN, Harmonized System of Nomenclature, HSN code, followed by your description of goods, value of supply, including digital signature, everything. All these are all components. If you come and carefully analyze this invoice and that invoice, you will identify one difference. In that invoice, you had a tax column. This invoice, you will not have a tax column. But for it, actually, there is no difference between your invoice, tax invoice, and bill of supply. There are some shops, there are some stores who are dealing in both taxable and exempted goods. For the benefit of those people, whenever they are going to deal with the end consumer, let me repeat, any supply to a unregistered person, end consumer, supply to a unregistered person. You're going to go to a theater, you're going to go to a mall and buy some goods. You are an unregistered person. So in case supply of goods to a unregistered person, very simple. Then those fellows alone, if they want, they can issue a invoice cum bill of supply. You are going to a medical shop, you're going to buy 6 medicines. 2 medicines are exempted and 4 medicines are taxable. Technically, what he has to do is, for that 4 medicine, he has to issue a tax invoice. For the 2 medicine, he has to issue a bill of supply. Adalam tough. So what government did is allowed both, called the respective bigger companies and told, if you want, let me repeat. If you want, you can issue a document called as tax invoice plus bill of supply, or tax invoice come bill of supply. If it is a tax invoice come bill of supply, it may be issued for all. That's all. So it might be issued for everyone, wherever who is not going to claim input tax credit of GST. So end consumers and all will not claim credit of GST. So at end consumer level, it comes and it gets closed. So there is nothing relating to your invoice come bill of sale. And the same rule is not applicable if you deal with whom? A registered person. Registered person are the tani invoice da vera veliye kadayadu. Invoice taniya adikano, bill of tax invoice taniya adikano, bill of supply taniya. In case if you are going to be a registered person, then agree. Components of a tax invoice issued by a input service system. Let me repeat it. When you go back to components strictly, again, what you will get remembered is almost all same items. Name, address, GST number of supplier, where he is located. All this will be a basics for it. And once that is through, they are done with it, then we will proceed with our registrations associated. So our discussions here are one. A tax invoice issued by a input service distributor will contain again almost same purposes. Whatever invoice will contain on the same purposes, this is also will contain. But something very important to note over here is this invoice alone is the basis, or this invoice is the base on which somebody can claim input tax credit. So GSTN of the supplier, which is nothing but the ISD, and GSTN of the recipient, which is going to be its own company's recipient, who is going to receive the credit. Those people information will be there, amount of credit that is going to be distributed, ITC signature, basic information. Let me repeat it, almost same conditions will get replicated. That is advantage of your components. இப்படியே ஒரு மாதிரி பேக்ல வந்தீங்கன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்களேன், ஜென்ரிக் டிஸ்கஷன் தவிர ஸ்பெஷலாக ஏதாவது இருக்கா அப்படின்னா, if you are going to supply goods to unregistered person for a value more than 50,000 rupees, ensure from him you collect address. Yes, that is an important factor. Followed by place of supply information should be filled in the invoice. Important part. When it comes to your bill of supply, where whatever information in tax invoice, same will be applicable in bill of supply. Nothing, no addition except tax invoice columns, tax columns will not be there. That's it. Invoice come bill of supply. In case of invoice come bill of supply, discussions are like this. In case of invoice come bill of supply, all that are going to happen here is a registered person who is going to deal with both taxable as well as exempted goods. A registered person who is going to deal with both taxable as well as exempted goods, then yes, he will issue a document called as bill of supply. And that too, if in case he is going to supply goods to a unregistered person, if he is going to supply goods to a registered person, this document will not come into place at all. Similarly, in case of an invoice issued by an input service distributor, now he will issue from input ISD will put as name, address of GST number of the ISD, and respective branch where they want to transfer the credit, that recipient, they are being the recipient, branch being the recipient, name, address, and GST number of the recipient. Signature, everything will lead to invoice doc. Coming back here, getting into documents of on documents, receipt voucher. How a receipt voucher will be, take care of basic information, name, address, GST number of supplier, name, address, GST number of recipient if registered, otherwise name, address of the recipient. Date of issue of receipt voucher. Let me repeat, date of issue of receipt voucher, consecutive number, இதெல்லாம் main point இல்ல, ஒண்ணே ஒண்ணுதான். Amount of advance taken followed by amount of tax charged in respect of taxable. That too more specifically, if rate of tax is not determinable, the rate shall be 18%. If nature of supply is not determinable, the nature shall be interstate supply. Who told us that? Rule 50. You already know. We already have discussed about it. I'm just highlighting. Also make a note, place of supply will be mentioned. Whether reverse charge applicable or not will be mentioned. Document can be manually signed or digitally signed. So, in a components of a receipt voucher, what is important? Two elements. Amount of advance will be mentioned. Two, if the nature of supply and rate of tax is not known, rate of tax will be 18%, nature of supply will be interstate. That's all. So that sums up your receipt voucher. In the same way, refund voucher. இதில் என்ன சார், இதுலேயும் காம்பனன்ட்ஸ் எல்லாம் சேமாக வரும் பாருங்க. Name, address of the supplier, date of issue of refund voucher, consecutive serial number, name, address of recipient, number and date on which, இதுதான் number and date of receipt voucher issue. In a refund voucher, you will refer back your receipt voucher because you are refunding the money. Which receipt voucher you are refunding, that reference will be there. That and amount refund. That's all. Anything else new, sir? Nothing. The rate of tax, amount of tax paid, whether it is RCM applicable or not, digitally signing, manual signing. That's all. Technically, பாத்தீங்கன்னா இந்த ரெண்டு பாயிண்ட் தான். See, let me repeat it. இங்க ஏன் இவ்வளவு ஸ்லைட்ஸ் இருக்குன்னா, இவ்வளவு ரூல்ஸ் எல்லாமே தனித்தனி ரூல். ப்ரீவியஸ் ரூல் 50, 51, அதுக்கு முன்னாடி 46, 47. See, இதான் எண்ட் ஆஃப் த டே அந்த ரூல் இருக்கிறதுனால தான் நம்ம மாத்திரமே தவிர கண்டென்ட்டா என்ன சார் புதுசா தெரிஞ்சுக்கிறோம், ரெண்டு பாயிண்ட் தான் தெரிஞ்சுக்கணும். In a refund voucher, you should refer your receipt voucher. I think I have already shared. இதெல்லாம் மார்னிங்கே படிச்சாச்சு. Come back here. Post your refund voucher. Sir, will I get a question? What are the components of a particular document? Maybe possible. A descriptive question, wherever, whomever it is applicable that way. More than a descriptive question, this area is often a MCQ area. A invoice number can have dash characters. Somebody should say 16 characters. What are these special characters allowed in that? Special characters, only two are allowed. Hyphen and slash. If you happen to see that, you can make a note of it. Only this hyphen or slash alone is allowed. Not at the rate, not dollar, no space, no dot, no underscore, hyphen, slash. The ரெண்டு number தான் allowed. No. Components of a payment voucher. Components of a payment voucher is concerned. Name, address, and GSTN of the supplier will be mentioned, followed by date of issue of payment voucher, characters, that numbering, followed by name, address, if it is registered, recipient is registered. If the recipient is unregistered, then yes, there will not be a concept of unregistered recipient. Always recipient will be registered. Maybe supplier will not be registered. That's not possible. Okay. number and date of payment voucher, followed by description of goods, amount paid. Description of goods respect of இந்த இடம் மட்டும் payment made to payment made by supplier. Let me repeat, இந்த வார்த்தை refund ஸ்ட்ரைக் பண்ணிட்டு payment made மாத்திக்கோங்க. இந்த ஒரு வார்த்தை தப்பு. Payment made by supplier. Done. Followed by again rate of tax, amount of taxes paid, then RCM applicable or not, signature or digital signature of the document. Again, almost all discussions are seen. Coming back here, getting into a crucial discussion, 3 documents: tax invoice, revised tax invoice, debit note or credit. Discussion is almost the same. Only words will change, otherwise almost same. The word revised invoice or tax invoice, credit note or debit note has to be prominently mentioned, followed by name, address, GSTN number of the supplier. Name, address, GST number of the supplier has to be mentioned. Name, address, GST number of the supplier will be collected. The nature of document. What is the nature of document? That consecutive serial number, name, address, GST number of recipient. இதெல்லாம் சேமா சார், அதே தான், ஒண்ணுமே மாறாது. Serial number, date of corresponding tax invoice, or as a case may be, in case of a bill of sale. இதுதான் ஒரு important. Whenever you issue a revised tax invoice, you will refer a original tax invoice. Whenever you issue a credit note, you will refer a original tax invoice. Whenever you issue a debit note, you will refer a original tax invoice. The whole idea here is the original document is issued. Sorry, the original document is referred. Based on your original document only, everything happens. So, a tax invoice, let me repeat, a tax invoice, a tax invoice, no, a revised tax invoice or a debit note or a credit note can be issued straight away, can be issued only after referring it to a original document. Only after referring it to a original document, it can be issued. Beyond that, it cannot be issued. Coming back here, this is with reference towards your debit note, credit note and revised invoice. சார் வேற ஏதாவது புதுசா இருக்குமா? ஒண்ணுமே கிடையாது, ஹெட்டிங் மட்டும்தான் மாறும். ஸோ டேக் கேர் அக்கார்டிங்லி. பட் என்னன்னா ஒரு டாக்குமெண்ட்டுக்கு ஒரு இம்பார்ட்டன்ஸ் இருக்கு, அந்த ஒரு இம்பார்ட்டன்ஸை ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கணும். Transportation of goods by GTM. Whenever a supplier transport goods, then along with the goods, he will transport the goods along with a consignment note. What is a consignment note? A consignment note is a note that will contain name of the supplier, name of the recipient, nature of goods, from which place to which place it is carried, what is the value of the goods, what is the CGST, SGST, IGST. All these information will be captured in a document called as a consignment. If you can see, what is the gross weight of the consignment, name of the consignor, name of the consignee, registered number of the goods carriage, the document, the goods carriage that is being there, followed by place of origin, destination, GST number of the person liable to pay tax to the consignee, and the complete details about the goods, complete details about the movement will be captured in a document called as consignment. So in case of transportation of goods by a GTA, consignment note has to be issued. Now, for any purposes other than what we have discussed, if any document need to be issued, which will be delivery challan. Wherever invoice cannot be issued, yes, there will be delivery challan. So delivery challan is a generic document, but it is also used for certain specified purposes. No doubt, for the purpose of job work, you will use only what? Delivery challan. For the purpose of job work, you will use only what? Delivery challan. In case somebody is going to transport liquid, gas, all that, and yes, they can use a delivery challan. Somebody want to remove goods. Let's say they want to transport goods, which is not resulting in supply. If it is not a supply, other than supply, they want to simply transport the goods other than supply. Then again, delivery challan can be issued. So delivery challan is something like whenever, wherever you cannot raise an invoice, in all that circumstance, you can use a delivery challan. Or already that goods is manufactured, already you did this goods goes for the purpose of testing, goods goes for the purpose of further manufacturing, goods goes for the purpose of demo purposes, it will come back. You may use a delivery challan. No prohibition, it can be, a delivery challan can be used. So these are all some of those different types of documents which will have different components associated with it. On the closure end, 2-3 slides only. On the components type. When goods are cleared in CKD or SKD condition, completely knocked down condition or semi-knocked down condition. When goods are going to be cleared in CKD, SKD condition, think of a boiler, think of a heat exchanger, think of a aluminum door panel, think of some furnishing that happens where you will fit it, everything will be fitted. So in case of all these situations, these are all nothing but it's all completely knocked down, semi knocked down. என்னன்னா மொத்தமா ரீவொர்க் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னா அது completely knocked down. Semi knocked downனா சும்மா வச்சு ஸ்க்ரூ போட்டு டைட் பண்ணா டைட் ஆயிடும். அது ஏதாவது ஐட்டம்ஸ் அது மாதிரி வச்சிருப்பாங்க. Then it is called a semi knocked down. The supplier shall issue the complete invoice before dispatch of the first consignment. கொஞ்சம் அப்படியே அதை பார்த்து ஒரு important discussion. It is applicable only in case of CKD, SKD. ஒரு நிமிஷம் எனக்கு புரியல சார், நீங்க ஏதோ CKD, SKD சொல்றீங்க, எனக்கு KD தான் சார் தெரியும் அப்படின்னா நத்திங் கிரேட். ஃபார்முலா 1 கார் ஒரு நிமிஷம் மனசுல வச்சுக்கோ, அது எப்படி வந்து பிட் ஸ்டாப்புக்கு வரும் அப்படின்ற மாதிரி பாருங்க, யோசிச்சு பாருங்க. எல்லா பார்ட்ஸும் தனித்தனியா அந்த கண்டெய்னர்ல இருக்கும். இந்த பிட் ஸ்டாப் இன்ஜினியர் மொத்த காரையும் அசம்பிள் பண்ணுவார். ஐடியா இஸ் தட் ஆல். பியாண்ட் தட் நத்திங், அப்சல்யூட்லி நத்திங். Coming back here, in case of semi knockdown or in case of completely knocked down, the entire invoice will be issued at the time of first consignment, before dispatch of first consignment. Then every other 4 dispatch goods ponona, for all the other dispatch, a certified copy of the invoice shall be issued along with the delivery challan, giving reference to the invoice. Correct. Similarly, the original copy of the invoice shall be issued along with the last consignment. 4 consignmentல goods போகுது from a supplier, அது ஒரு windmill. 4 consignment அனுப்புறாங்கன்னா no doubt first consignment when it is over, for the entire windmill they'll raise an invoice. But first part of the windmill, yes, along with that windmill one certified copy will go. Original copy, certified copy na Xerox எடுத்து கையெழுத்து போட்டு கொடுக்கணும். Certified copy will go. Along with the second part, yes, certified copy will go. Third part, certified copy will go. Fourth part, original bill will go. But very interesting to note, original bill, when it will be issued, it will be issued at the time of dispatch of goods. At the time of dispatch of first consignment, original will be issued. But when it will be sent to the consumer, at the time of last dispatch. So that is how goods will be removed in case of your section 55. When goods are being transported on a delivery challan in lieu of invoice, the same shall be declared in e-way. See, there is a possibility that instead of an invoice or in lieu of an invoice, you can use a delivery challan. One. When the goods are being transported for the purpose of supply to a recipient, but the tax invoice could not be issued at the time of removal of goods for the purpose of supply, the same shall be issued after delivery of goods. So wherever goods are being transported on delivery challan in lieu of invoice, the same shall be declared in the e-way bill. When the goods are transported or for a purpose of supply to the recipient, but the tax invoice could not be issued, in all those cases, subsequently you can generate an e-way bill. Wherever there is e-way bill is not applicable or not mandatory. The person in charge of the conveyance shall carry a copy of tax invoice or bill of supply in accordance with the provisions of the Act in cases where person is not required to carry a e-way bill. See, அவங்க என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா, either e-way bill னு ஒன்னு படிப்போம். Very important discussion. e-way bill னு ஒரு டாக்குமெண்ட் வச்சுக்கோங்க. இல்ல என்ன வச்சுக்கோங்க அப்படின்னா இன்வாய்ஸை வச்சுக்கோங்க. ரெண்டுத்துல ஏதாவது ஒன்று வச்சுக்கோங்க. See, கீழே இருக்கிற situation, the person in charge of a conveyance shall have a copy of tax invoice or bill of supply issued accordance with the provisions of so and so rules. Wherever person is not required to carry e-way bill. Okay. So when you go to e-way bill, you will learn if you are dealing in fruits, if you are dealing in vegetables, you are not required to generate a e-way bill. But wherever e-way bill is not applicable, in all those places, tax invoice is mandatory. Wherever places e-way bill is mandatory, in that place subsequently you can raise tax invoice, no harm. But take care of certain other challenges, but subsequently you can raise a tax invoice. Followed by a credit note. Credit note will be issued by a supplier. Let me repeat. Credit note will be issued by a supplier. நாலு காரணம் தான். When there is a excess value charged, where there is a excess tax charge, when the other party has returned the goods or the supply is deficient. If the supply is not good, supply is deficient, then no doubt, yes, you will use it. So supply is sufficient, supply is not deficient, or goods are not returned, apana neenga credit note issue panna mudiyadhu. Credit note can be issued only for 4 purposes. Beyond that, no purposes credit note can be issued. So a credit note will be issued by a supplier to always reduce the value of supply. In case excess value charged, to reduce that. Excess tax charged, to reduce that. Or in case return of goods, sales return has happened, then yes, account for that. So those are the reasons relating to a credit note which will be issued by a supplier. Supplier of goods as well as supplier of services will issue a credit note. And in the credit note, whatever credit note issued by them will be mentioned in the month in which the credit note is issued. In whichever month they have issued a credit note, in that month itself it will be issued. Rarely a credit note can be missed. In case a credit note is missed to be accounted before filing of annual return, the answer is yes. We all read for a particular financial year, a credit note can be issued. Credit note can be issued by a person before next September financial year return filing due date. Next September return filing due date, or filing of annual return of this two, whichever is earlier. Not later than, negative word pandranga. Not later than September following end of the financial year, or before filing of your annual return. Before filing of annual return, or before, not later than September financial. Point is this. எனக்கு ஏதாவது டைம் லிமிட் இருக்கா, இந்த தேதிக்குள்ள தான் நாங்க கிரெடிட் நோட் இஷ்யூ பண்ணணுமா? ஆமா, கிரெடிட் நோட்ன்றது அந்தந்த மாசம் நீங்க இஷ்யூ பண்ணணும். இந்த மாசம் உங்களுக்கு குட்ஸ் ரிட்டர்ன் ஆயிடுச்சுன்னா இந்த மாசமே தான் நீங்க இஷ்யூ பண்ணணும். மேபி இந்த மாசத்தோட கடைசியில வந்துச்சு சார், ஓகே நெக்ஸ்ட் மாசம் ஆரம்பத்துல இஷ்யூ பண்ணணும். நான் மறந்துட்டேன் சார் கிரெடிட் நோட் இஷ்யூ பண்ண, எனக்கு ஏதாவது டைம் லிமிட் இருக்கா? எஸ், யூ ஹேவ் அ டைம் லிமிட் இன் கேஸ் இஃப் a credit note is missed to be accounted. If a credit note is missed to be accounted, the time limit goes like this. From your what is it? From the after that financial year, before filing September return due date, before filing September month return due date, or filing of annual return of this two, whichever is earlier. இந்த டேட்டுக்குள்ள நீங்க கிரெடிட் நோட் அப்லோட் பண்ணிட்டீங்கன்னா then yes, ensure the other party reverse the credit. Now whatever credit note issued by the supplier, to that extent it can be adjusted by him in the subsequent supply. If the incident of tax and interest is not passed on, one or more credit note for the what to say a credit note benefit should not be passed on to the other person. Sir, apdina sir, if you are going to issue a credit note, it will reduce the value of your supply, which means the other person purchase value will also come down. Unga sale value korayudana other person ku purchase value aduvum korayum. Agreed. So both of you agreed for it, then no issues. In case if any of you not agreed for it, a credit note cannot be issued. And again, one credit note can be mapped with multiple invoices. Is a new amendment relating to credit note. Similarly, a debit note, if they want to increase the value of supply, a debit note will be issued. You don't have any other reason for a debit note. Again, debit note generally will be accounted within the month. If in case it is not accounted, it shall be adjusted along with the tax liability. See, debit note is talking about excess tax payable. Credit note will talk about already paid tax now becomes excess. So that is the broader difference between your credit note and debit note. A lot more can be read, but that would be sufficient from a little exam perspective relating to a debit note. If a person has purchased the goods, a person has sold the goods for rupees 1 lakh with 18,000 rupees tax, then he issues a bill for that extent. 1 month passed by, 2 months passed by. End of second month, they come to know the goods that they have purchased is not good. It is fading. So you came and told, I will return the goods. Not all the goods, only 20,000 worth of goods. Now, what technically the respective supplier should do is collect that 20,000 worth of goods and issue a credit note. While issuing a credit note, he will reduce your, let me repeat, while issuing a credit note, he will reduce your purchases cost or the credit note which has been issued by the supplier to the recipient. The recipient will receive the credit note. He will reverse the ITC. To that extent, supplier can adjust his output tax liability. திருப்பி சொல்றேன், 1,00,000 ரூபாய் பொருள்னு போட்டு வித்துட்டீங்க. நாளைக்கு 10,000 ரூபாய்க்கு ஒர்த்து குட்ஸ் ரிட்டர்ன் ஆயிடுச்சு. சரி, 10,000 ரூபாய் பிளஸ் 900 rupees டாக்ஸ், சாரி 1,800 rupees டாக்ஸ் அப்படின்னு போட்டு கொடுத்துட்டீங்க கிரெடிட் நோட். உங்க பணம் 1,800 ரூபாய் இப்ப கவர்மெண்ட் இருக்கா? நீங்க அந்த 1,800 ரூபாய்க்கு என்ன பண்ணிக்கலாம்? சப்சிக்வெண்ட் பில்லுல அட்ஜஸ்ட் பண்ணிக்கலாம். எப்படி ரீஃபண்ட் வவுச்சரை நீங்க அடுத்தடுத்த பில்லுல அட்ஜஸ்ட் பண்ணிக்கலாமோ அதே மாதிரி கிரெடிட் நோட்டை அடுத்தடுத்த பில்லுல அட்ஜஸ்ட் பண்ணலாம். So come back here. This sums up your different documents that are issued under GST. Let me repeat it. Different documents, different components that are associated in the document. இங்க என்ன ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டன்ட்னா ஒரு டாக்குமெண்ட்லயும் இருக்கிற காம்பனன்ட் தான் இம்பார்ட்டன்ட். என்னென்னலாம் காம்பனன்ட்ஸ் அந்த டாக்குமெண்ட்டுக்குள்ள இருக்கு அப்படின்றது மட்டும் தான் இம்பார்ட்டன்ட், வேற எதுவுமே இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் இல்லை. ஏன்னா இங்க எல்லாமே இது எல்லாமே ஈஸி. அகெயின் 8 ஐட்டம் ஜென்ரிக்கா இருக்கும். நேம் அண்ட் அட்ரஸ் ஆஃப் தி சப்ளையர், நேம் அண்ட் அட்ரஸ் ஆஃப் தி ரெசிபியன்ட், டேட் ஆஃப் டாக்குமெண்ட், அகெயின் date of payment of tax, amount, consecutive number, date of invoice. இதெல்லாம் எல்லா டாக்குமெண்ட்டுக்கும் சேம். Then what is the difference? Certain transactions alone will have a unique understanding. Certain transactions alone will have a unique understanding of what is speciality about that. That alone we will touch and walk away. Or in fact, that is what I want also you to concentrate when you learn on all these different entries is concerned. Broadly know about each entry and then take care of its important aspects associated. Now, before we move forward, I am forced to take up a question here. If you carefully note, I am not taking questions consciously from morning because a very poor response. I never expected that. So I'm conscious enough not taking questions. But here, this topic, this area warrants me to take a question. So only one question. That's all. R Limited, a company engaged in supply of services. R Limited, a company engaged in supply of services, gives the following information. R Limited, a company engaged in supply of services, gives the following information. A, taxable value of supply for which tax invoice is issued, rupees 10 lakhs. On which GST at the rate of 18% is payable. B, credit note issued during the month. Credit note issued during the month for for defect defect in providing services for rupees 1 lakhs on which GST at the rate of 18% is paid. Credit note issued during the month for a previous month bill on account of defect in providing services for rupees 1 lakh. Return of advance received during the previous month. Return of advance received during the previous month by way of issue of refund voucher for rupees 75,000 on which GST at the rate of 18%. Calculate the GST payable for the month. R Limited, a company engaged in supply of service, gives the following information. The taxable value of services for which tax invoice issued during the month is rupees 10 lakhs. During the month is rupees 10 lakhs. On which GST is at the rate of 18% is paid. Credit note issued during the month for a previous month bill or a old bill due to defect in providing services, another 1 lakh. Return of an old advance on which they have collected GST. Originally they collected advance, now the advance is completely refunded back, on which GST is paid at the rate of 18%. Now you are being asked to calculate your total GST payable by R Limited for the month. So arrive what is the total GST payable by R Limited for the month. Quick, go ahead. Maximum 3 minutes. That's all. 3 minutes means 3 minutes. Within 3 minutes you have to come. Quick. Good. If somebody can give you answer, think all of you can give you answer. Good, good, good. Already 3 answers received. Good. Hamid, check your answer, Hamid. Good. Sneha through. Malavika, check your answer. Sanjay through. Hamid, I think I've already shared to you. Neha through. Madhumita, check. Anand Vishwanathan through. Aishwarya through. Sashikala, check your answer. Sudarshan, check your answer. Shivani, no. No, Shivani. Gangadharan, check your answer. Abhijit, check your answer. Rajendra Tilak through. Pranav through. Faisal through. Gayatri, check your answer. Shweta, check your answer. Divya Mahalingam, check your answer. Shweta, already you shared the answer. No? Shweta through. Gangadharan, revised answer through. Understood. See, the whole idea is very simple. Apart from components, whatever you learned, one more extra thing you need to learn is how this should get adjusted in the taxpayer. Now, the company has a tax liability for that month. Okay, so put that tax payable for the month. Now, come back here. Tax payable for the month. Tax payable by the supplier or output tax payable for the month is determined. Maybe we'll call it as output tax payable for that month is lakh and 80,000. How you will get 10 lakhs into 18%, you'll get 1,80,000. If we go back to the problem, second adjustment was a credit note is issued during the month for defects. So, credit note issued by a supplier. Credit note received issued by a supplier. In case of credit note issued by a supplier, which means already he made a supply in the last month for some number, that value he is reducing now. He is reducing by 1 lakh. So you are reducing the credit note issued by a supplier. 1 lakh value of goods, 18% tax. So you will get automatically your 18,000. 10 lakhs is the value of goods that are sold during the month. On that 18% tax, you'll get your number. In the same way, here in the third transaction, it is not a receipt of advance, I believe. It is a advance received. Look at the line item here. Return of advance received. Return of advance received during the previous month by way of issue of a refund voucher. So it is a return of advance received. Because it is a return of advance received, so what would happen is you are returning the advance through a refund voucher, which means once you refund the tax amount and the tax to your customer, to the respective customer, once you return the advance, so that amount which you have already paid tax earlier now will be adjusted in the subsequent tax payable. So the net tax payable will be 1,48,500. Hope a lot of you got it. Revised numbers of Hamid, the revised number of Gangadhar and all are through. So this is how this number is there. Credit note will reduce your value of supply, also reduce your tax payable. Refund voucher will reduce your tax payable. Of course, value of supply reduce பண்ணாது. ஏன்னா அது வேல்யூ ஆஃப் சப்ளைக்கே போகாது. அட்வான்ஸா வாங்கி அட்வான்ஸ்லேயே வச்சிருப்போம். P&L-க்கே போகாது. அதனால தான் அந்த வார்த்தையை நம்ம அங்கே யூஸ் பண்ணுறோம். In any case, it's a reduction. If you all get your 1,48,500, good. இதை ஆட் பண்ணிலாம் நம்பர் அரைவ் பண்ணீங்கன்னா I am sorry. I am very, very sorry. 1,80,000 plus 18 plus 13,500. Not credit note issued. Credit note issued by a supplier will reduce his tax payable. Refund voucher issued by a supplier will reduce his tax payable. Advances received by a supplier will increase his tax payable. Debit note issued by a supplier will increase his tax payable. So that is how it will be. It's just a sample problem. Like this, 1 or 2 problems you can do and take a grip on this stuff. Moving forward. This is about your components of your, components of your bill of supply. So we are at a strategic point. Okay. If you want a break, we can take a break before me starting up a new topic called as e-Waybill. I have another 40 minutes discussion on e-Waybill, 45 minutes discussion on e-Waybill, one document that will be issued by a supplier whenever goods are clear. Who can issue, how it will be filled, if it is not available, what will happen, who are all not required to get, on what products e-Waybill is not required, what is the validity period of e-Waybill, all that will be discussed here, plus another 10 minutes discussion or 15 minutes maximum discussion on section 35 and 36. How long you can store the records, what are the records you need to maintain. 35, 36. மொத்தமா ஒரு 3 slide அது. So that is on account and records. This is on GST. So about 1 hour, 10 minutes discussion maximum I will have. Maximum I'm talking. அதுக்கு மேல இருக்காது. So if you want a break, we will take a break. A 10 minutes break. Got 10 minutes break. After 10 minutes, we will join. No, sir, we will continue. I leave it to you. Yes. We'll take a break. Yes or no? See, I'm getting mixed response. So if you say, I need a break. The general interest of all will break for 10 minutes. We'll exactly break for 10 minutes. Rejoin by 8:10. We'll rejoin by 8:10. Close by maximum 9 o'clock. Don't be bad. 9 o'clock என்ன முடியுதோ நான் முடிச்சுடுவேன். E-Waybill முடிச்சா கூட போதும். ஹாப்பின்றனா போதும்ன்றனா வேணான்ற அதுவே போதும். Good. Okay. I will break for 10 minutes. Rejoin. Thank you. E-Waybill. As part of E-Waybill is concerned, this is a document that will be available with every person who is going to move the goods on the road. This one document becomes a mandatory document. There is a section called as Section 68. Section 68 gives powers to an officer, GST officer, that whenever a conveyance is carrying goods, when the goods are in transit, a particular document which is prescribed by the government that need to be available with the respective conveyance. Conveyance means vehicles. So if you come back here, the person in charge of the conveyance, person in charge means the driver, the person who is responsible for the conveyance, the person in charge of the conveyance, carrying any consignment of goods of value exceeding such amount specified. Carrying consignment of goods for a value exceeding an amount specified. Carrying consignment goods of value exceeding an amount specified may be specified to carry such documents. Now, whenever any conveyance is intercepted by a proper officer at any place, he may require the person in charge of the conveyance to produce the documents prescribed under the section. What is the document prescribed under this section? நான் திருப்பி சொல்றேன். இந்த மூணாவது paragraph தான் ரொம்ப important paragraph. Where any conveyance is interceptedனா மறிச்சு லாரியில என்ன எடுத்துன்னு போறீங்கன்னு கேட்டு information capture. Whenever a vehicle is intercepted by an officer, the person in charge will be asked to produce certain documents. So what are those documents? Those documents is nothing but your E-Waybill under section 138. Section 68 என்ன டாக்குமெண்ட் எடுத்துன்னு வரணும்னு சொல்லிச்சு, prescribed document கொண்டு வரணும்னு சொல்லிச்சு. அந்த prescribed document என்ன அப்படின்னு சொன்னது section 130. Whenever the value of consignment exceed rupees 50,000. Let me repeat. Whenever a value of consignment exceed rupees 50,000, then E-Waybill will be generated. So understand that whenever the value of consignment exceed rupees 50,000, E-Waybill will be generated. Now, when E-Waybill will be generated? Whenever there is a movement of goods in relation to supply of goods. Whenever there is a movement of goods other than supply of goods, whenever there is an inward supply of goods from unregistered person. பொருள் வெளில போறதுக்கு மட்டும் goods எடுத்து e-waybill generate பண்ணணும்னு இல்ல. பொருள் உள்ள வரதுக்கு கூட நீங்க e-waybill generate பண்ணலாம். You are buying goods from agriculturist. You are buying cashew nuts from agriculturist. At that time, goods are coming inward, not outward. When goods comes inward, at that time also you can use what? A e-waybill if the value of consignment exceed rupees 50,000. Let me repeat it. Consignment value. Okay, if the consignment value exceed rupees 50,000. Now, there is a format for the e-waybill. The format for the e-waybill is EWB1. Okay, GST e-waybill 1. That is what is the acronym for it. So, e-waybill 1, EWB1 is the format for it. It has two parts. Part A, all informations of Part A will be relating to product from where to where it goes, supplier, recipient, delivery, address. இதுதான் சுத்தி சுத்தி goods எந்த location, யார் supplier, யார் recipient இதை பத்தி தான் பேசுவோம். Part B அப்படியே opposite. In which lorry it goes, in which vehicle it goes, or it goes by road or air or sea, then what are the documents for those aspects that are covered. Now, come back here. Whenever goods are going to be moved and the value exceeds 50,000, e-waybill is mandatory. நான் திருப்பியும் சொல்றேன், e-waybill is mandatory for all movement of goods. Sale of goods, supply of goods ன்லாம் நான் சொல்லல. Movement of goods ன்றேன். Your movement can be for supply, movement can be for providing a service. A person carry a machine value more than 50,000 to do a service, then for that also you have to generate the e-waybill. For that, the e-waybill has to be generated. That's the interesting part of this discussion. Coming back here. Irrespective of whether you carry value of goods more than or less than 50,000, okay, more than 50,000 definitely, even less than 50,000, in case of supply of goods by a principal to agent, or supply of goods by a principal to a job worker, or any person making an interstate supply of handicraft goods, or a casual taxable person. Four transactions. Supply of goods by principal to agent, principal to job worker, interstate supply of handicrafts, supply of goods by a handicraft, supplier being a supplier of handicraft goods, casual taxable person. These four persons mandatorily will generate e-waybill for even 1 rupee of goods moves. Compulsory e-waybill, mandatory e-waybill for 4 people. Person who transport goods. Principal is in Tamil Nadu, agent is in Bombay. Goods moves from principal to agent. Value of goods is 15,000. Mandatorily generate e-waybill. Principal is in Tamil Nadu. Job worker is in Andhra Pradesh, Sulurpet. Goods goes from Tamil Nadu, Chennai to Andhra Pradesh, Sulurpet for the purpose of job work. Mandatory e-waybill. You will not say, sir, 25,000, 30,000. அதெல்லாம் பேச்சுக்கே இடம் கிடையாது. Even if the value is less than 50,000, e-waybill becomes mandatory on these four circumstances. How you will determine value of that goods, sir? As per section 15. You all already learned to know. As per section 15, value will be determined in case of this goods. Coming back here, generation of an electronic e-waybill. Who can generate an e-waybill? Registered person. As a consignor, he can generate the e-waybill. As a consignor, he can generate the e-waybill. Or as a consignee, he can generate the e-waybill. When goods are transported either by a registered person, that is by the supplier, consignor, or by the recipient, receives the goods, he transports the goods, consignee. both of them anybody can create a e-waybill. E-waybill has to be generated even goods goes in own conveyance or hired conveyance. Let me repeat. Sir, in our office lorry only goods goes, sir. This lorry belongs to us only, sir. We are not absolutely bothered whose lorry, whether it is owned or hired, belongs to the company. Whenever goods moves, then yes, e-waybill becomes mandated. Now, when a registered person or a recipient generate a e-waybill, he will generate a e-waybill after furnishing Part A information and Part B information. Part A information talks about the goods. Part B information talks about the transport related information. Which vehicle number it goes, how it goes by road, rail, vessel, so sea or air, how it goes. That information is captured in Part B. Sometimes the transportation will not be handled by the client. Transportation will be handled by the transporter. Then at that time, the e-waybill shall not be valid for movement unless Part B information is not furnished within 72 hours. A small point need to be noted down by you, which is actually your next point will give you. Now. Yes. Consignor can fill the Part A details. Consignor can fill the Part A details of e-waybill. Consignee will fill the Part B details, or consignor also can fill the Part B details, and they transport the goods after generating an e-waybill. Consignor or consignee fills. Who's going to transport? The consignor fills the e-waybill, give it to his transporter. Transporter fills Part B, and then e-waybill is generated. The only point that I want you to appreciate here is, don't think only consignor has to generate a e-waybill. இங்க ஒரு ஃபுல் லாரி குட்ஸ் ஃபுல்லா அனுப்ப போறீங்கன்னா உங்களுக்கு லாரி நம்பர் தெரியும், லாரி நம்பர் போட்டுருவீங்க. உங்கள்கிட்ட கையில உள்ள ஒரு 20 கிலோ பார்சல் தான் இருக்கு. You don't know which lorry it is going to go. What you will do? You will go to professional couriers, drop the 20 kg, collect a receipt and go away. Say him, the professional couriers will say, what is the value, sir, of this goods? 80,000 rupees. Sir, e-waybill. Part A will be filled, Part B will be blank. Why? Professional courier, when they are going to transport, at the time they will key in Part B and generate it. Do we have a time limit for generating Part B? Yes. From Part A being filled within 72 hours, Part B need to be filled. So do I need to remember this hours at all? Yes. Exam question MCQ la indala da varudhu. What is the validity of a e-waybill? How many kilometers per day e-waybill can be given? Within how many hours e-waybill has to be accepted? இதே மாதிரி இன்னொரு கேள்வி வரும். Now, a transporter, in case you want to assign, in case you assigned the e-waybill to a transporter after filling Part A information, Part B உங்க லாரி ஃபுல்லா உங்க goods தான் போகுதுன்னா உங்களுக்கு நீங்களே Part B ஜெனரேட் பண்ணி Part B fill பண்ணி நீங்களே e-waybill generate பண்ணிடலாம். That is that client itself. The challenge with the client is he is not sending a big amount of goods. He is just sending 50 kgs, 80 kgs, 100 kgs. Then he don't even have a small truckload. He just have one box. That's all. He gave to Blue Dart. He gave to DHL. He gave to Professional Courier. Professional Courier accepted that consignment. Also accepted a e-waybill. Partly filled. Only Part A is filled, and an acknowledgement number will be generated. Blue Dart will take it to his transport yard. There it will segregate. When they know all Bangalore goods are going to the lorry number, ella e-waybill this lorry number, submit. Part B will be submitted by the transporter. The time limit for the transporter to generate Part B, to key in Part B vehicle details and generate is 72 hours. In case goods goes by air, goods goes by rail, goods goes by vessel. Then the serial number, date of railway receipt, date of airway bill, or consignment note of the air consignment note, or bill of lading in case of ship. இது ஒன்றும் ஒரு டாக்குமெண்ட். ஏர்வே பில் அப்படின்னும் சொல்லுவீங்க, ஏர் கன்சைன்மெண்ட் நோட் அப்படின்னும் சொல்லுவோம். Railway receipt, bill of lading in case of ship. All these documents, you will feed the data and generate a e-way bill in case if goods goes by what? Rail, air, vessel. So if goods goes by rail, air, vessel, enna agum parunga. You will generate a part A of e-way bill, go to the respective railway station, drop the goods there, and they will make a note of the acknowledgement number. They will say, you generate a e-way bill with this railway receipt and ask him to produce there, let him collect it. The customer who is going to collect it there, the goods, no, he will go with the e-way bill, which is filled all these information. So in case goods goes by air, goods goes by vessel, goods goes by rail, then the respective number of the e-way bill will be generated. Followed by, in case, what is the process of generation of e-way bill? If the person is not a registered person, he is not a registered person, then e-way bill shall be generated by the transporter. Sir, not everybody is registered. No, correct. In case of unregistered person, e-way bill will be generated by transporter. Transporter shall generate the e-way bill on the common portal based on information furnished by either registered person or an unregistered person. In case of movement of goods by unregistered person, transporter or the recipient of unregistered person shall generate a e-way bill. அழகா கொடுத்துட்டாங்க பாருங்க. Sir, நான் unregistered person ஆச்சு. If you are unregistered, either transporter should generate e-way bill or recipient will generate e-way bill. Government is very clear. Government will not generate an e-way bill. And government is also clear on one more point. Whenever goods moves, either by road, by air, by rail, by whatever mode, e-way bill is mandatory. For every movement of goods, there has to be an electronic way bill, where these are the modes in which it can be created. Now you read through it, you will get a better clarity. I send a full shipload of consignment. I send a full lorry load of consignment. Maybe this model will be opted. Consignor, consignee, they themselves will fill all the information, and then e-way bill will be generated. Sometimes they only have part load of goods. At that time, this is the model will be opted, where they will fill the basic information, give it to the transporter. Transporter fills the information, and e-way bill will be generated. In case of multiple consignments which are intended to be transported in one conveyance, transporter can generate a consolidated e-way bill. Let me repeat. You and me cannot generate a consolidated e-way bill. Transporter can generate a consolidated e-way bill. Any e-way bill generated in the government system. e-way bill சொன்னதுக்கு அப்புறம் ஏதோ ஒரு ஆர்டினரி ஃபார்ம் மாதிரி நினைச்சுக்காதீங்க. ஆன்லைன்ல போயிட்டு லாகின் ஐடி, யூசர் ஐடி, லாகின் பாஸ்வேர்ட்லாம் போட்டுட்டு, திஸ் இஸ் மை இன்வாய்ஸ், திஸ் இஸ் த டேட் ஆஃப் இன்வாய்ஸ், திஸ் இஸ் த நேம் ஆஃப் சப்ளையர், திஸ் இஸ் த நேம் ஆஃப் ரெசிபியன்ட், this is the address of supplier, this is the address of recipient, this is the GST number of supplier, this is the GST number of recipient, this is the date of invoice, this is the goods that are going to be transported, HSN of the goods, value, quantity, CGST or SGST, IGST, எல்லா இன்ஃபர்மேஷனும் பார்ட் ஏல கவர் ஆயிடும். அப்போ பார்ட் பில சார் ரோடு, ரயில், ஷிப், ஏர், 4 ஆப்ஷன். அது 4த்துல ஒன்று செலக்ட் பண்ணுவீங்க. If you select road, lorry number. That's all. End. Generate, it will get generated. If you have this valid document e-way bill, then only you will be allowed. Otherwise, you are not allowed. Now, if a consignment is not transported, E-way-bill has to be cancelled within 24 hours. Sir, if I don't cancel within 24 hours a e-way-bill, it cannot be cancelled at all. Let me repeat, it cannot be cancelled at all. Very, very tough. If the moment you know consignment was not transport, within 24 hours it has to be cancelled. Yeah. How the validity period of a e-way bill is designed? The validity period of a e-way bill is designed based on how many kilometers it is going to travel. So if a goods is going to travel from Chennai to Bangalore, 460 kilometers roughly, which means for the first 100 kilometers, 1 day. Every other incremental 100 kilometers or a part of 100 kilometers, it will be valid for a period of 5 days. That is to say, a e-way bill generated tonight will be valid for a period of 5 days to reach the goods to Bangalore. Very interesting to note. Our fellows will take night maybe at 11:30. Next day morning at 7:30, he will reach Bangalore. That's a very vishayam. Okay. But the time limit given by the government is 5 days. I think 5 days is normal. Okay. It is very much sufficient. Every 100 kilometer, 1 day. And any excess of 100 kilometer, they'll get one extra day. Followed by, in case if it is a ODC cargo, over dimensional cargo, okay, very big container, big windmill, big this, that is called as over dimensional cargo, heat exchanger. While you are in a highway, you would have seen all this big lorries. It is not called as lorries, it is called as trailer. Big trailers carrying windmill blades, windmill stems, windmill commissioning parts. All this are ODC cargos, over dimensional cargos. As it is a over dimensional cargo, 1 day it is allowed. If it is crossed 20 kilometers, it is sufficient. So every part of a kilometer, you will get, every part of 20 kilometer, you will get a extra day. That is to say, if it is 422 kilometers, so 400 days or 420 divided by 20, you will get roughly, 240 for my convenience, I'll put more. 240, 12 days. 12 days the goods has to be transported. That is the validity period of the e-way. Followed by the details of the e-way bill shall be made available to the recipient, because today everything is connected through mobile and email. The mobile in your, if the recipient's name on e-way bill is generated, automatically one message will go. Once the person receives that message, he should know, yes, I have purchased some goods, yes, I have purchased some services. That is why that e-way bill comes. Otherwise, if the e-way bill is not applicable to them, the e-way bill has to be rejected, will be within 72 hours. If I don't reject the e-way bill within 72 hours, it is deemed that it has been accepted. Acceptance or rejection of consignment covered by an e-way bill shall be communicated within 72 hours. If no communication is received, it shall be deemed that he has accepted the said information and said details. 100 goods வந்துடுச்சு. நீங்க என்ன சொல்றீங்க, அக்செப்ட் பண்ணிட்டீங்கன்னா 100 goods வந்துடுச்சுன்னு அர்த்தம். சார் 100 goods வந்ததுல 10 goods திருப்பி அனுப்பிச்சிட்டேன் சார். இவே பில் ஃபுல்லா தானே அக்செப்ட் பண்ணிருக்கீங்க, ரிஜெக்டே பண்ணலையே, பார்ட் ரிஜெக்ஷனும் பண்ணலையே, இல்ல நீங்க ஒரு இவே பில் போட்டு அனுப்பலையே. Can you able to understand this logic? This is a requirement under the law. E-way bill, facility of generation and cancellation of e-way bill is also available through SMS. Leave that. That is a normal information, nothing great about it. On what circumstances e-way bill is not required? Let me repeat. In what circumstances e-way bill is not required? We are discussing of what circumstances e-way bill is not. There are some goods mentioned in the annexure. On those goods, e-way bill is not required. If goods are transported in a non-motorized conveyance, e-way bill is not required. What do you mean by non-motorized conveyance? Smart vandila transport panningana, e-way bill is not required. So be very clear. So if it is transported in a non-motorized conveyance, e-way bill is not required. Similarly, in case of an exempted goods means exempted goods, all those goods which are exempted from levy of GST. We read no milk, this, that, curd, vegetables, fruits, all these goods, e-way bill is not required. Similarly, transportation of alcoholic liquor, petroleum products, high-speed diesel, low-speed diesel oil, all this e-way bill is not required. Transportation of goods from port to airport, air cargo to a inland container depot. Okay, from airport to inland container depot, port to inland container depot, air cargo to inland container depot, e-way bill is not required. Selectively, e-way bill is not required is told. We'll come back to that annexure sometime later. Non-motorized conveyance, e-way bill is not required. If it is a no supply, then e-way bill is not required. If it is an exempted goods under GST, e-way bill is not required. Non-taxable goods such as alcoholic liquor, petroleum products, e-way bill is not required. Goods moves from port, airport, land customs station to inland container depot. இதெல்லாம் customs area movement. The customsல படிச்சோம் பாத்தீங்களா? From customs port to customs warehouse, from customs port to a inland container depot or inland container depot to port. இது மாதிரி இடத்துக்கெல்லாம் goods move ஆகும் for various transportation related purposes. At that time, you are not required to have a e-way bill. Are there any specific goods discussed in the annexure? If you see, yes, liquefied petroleum gas. Okay, all those LPG. Okay, this LPG e-way bill is not required. Kerosene oil, which is sold under public distribution system, e-way bill not required. Postal baggage, it is not required. Pearls and precious or semi-precious stones, e-way bill not required. Jewelry and wares, all those wares made of jewelry, articles of jewelry, e-way bill is not required. Currency note, e-way bill is not required. Used personal effects, e-way bill is not required. Okay. Coral, unworked and worked coral, a particular product, e-way bill is not. ஸோ இதெல்லாம் கொஞ்சம் நான் ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கிறோமா, ஒரு 4 தடவை படிச்சு பாருங்க, எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு ஈஸியாக ஞாபகம் இருக்கும். எல்பிஜிக்கு வேண்டாம், கெரோசினுக்கு வேண்டாம், ப்ரீஷியஸ் ஸ்டோன் வேண்டாம், ஜுவல்லரி வேண்டாம், இதெல்லாம் எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு ஞாபகம். கரன்சி நோட்டு வேண்டாம். போஸ்டல் பேகேஜ், போஸ்ட் பேக் இருக்குல்ல, அந்த பேக் ஒரு நம்ம நிறைய பேருக்கு தெரியாது, கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமாக தெரிஞ்சுக்கணும். ஏன் ஒரு ட்ரெயினை சென்னை எக்ஸ்பிரஸ்னு சொல்கிறோம், இன்னொரு ட்ரெயினை சென்னை மெயில்னு சொல்கிறோம்? ஆமாம் சார், சென்னை எக்ஸ்பிரஸ்னு ஒன்று இருக்கு, சென்னை மெயில்னு ஒன்று இருக்குல்ல. ஏன் மெயிலுக்கும் எக்ஸ்பிரஸ்க்கும் டெல்லி மெயில்னு ஏன் சொல்றீங்க, டெல்லி எக்ஸ்பிரஸ்னு சொல்றீங்க? மும்பை மெயில், மும்பை எக்ஸ்பிரஸ் ரெண்டு இருக்கு. ரைட், வெரி சிம்பிள். வேர் எவர் த வேர்ட் மெயில் ரெஃபர்ஸ், one container, one wagon or a half wagon will be for post office. All those letters will go only in that mail. That is why it is called as a mail. So there they will tag it in a postal baggage. That is what they are referring to. Postal baggage transported by Department of Post, not a mail. Followed by used personal or household items. Household item, if it is transported, e-way bill not. In my humble view, read through these 2 slides. Anything can be tested as part of MCQ or can be tested as a descriptive question to whomever it will. This sums up your e-way bill. Very simple topic. Looks little complicated. Actually simple. என்ன சார் சொல்ல வரீங்க? ரோட்ல போகும்போது கவர்மெண்ட் கிட்ட சொல்லி குட்ஸை கிளியர் பண்ணி எடுத்துன்னு போங்கன்னு சொல்றோம். There is a website called as ewaybill.gst.gov.in. Go to that site, create your user ID, mention your delivery challan or invoice or what document based on which you are clearing and for what purpose you are clearing, where it goes, from which location to which location it goes, with which vehicle number. If you don't know the vehicle number, your transporter can mention the vehicle number If you not going to go by road, you're going to send it by air, rail, then put that necessary number, generate a e-waybill. I'm an unregistered person, sir. How I can generate a e-waybill, but I'm transporting 75,000 worth goods. Very simple. Ask your recipient to generate e-waybill. Sir, recipient is also unregistered fellow, sir. நானும் சின்ன ட்ரேடர் சார், அவரும் சின்ன ட்ரேடர் சார். கவர்மெண்ட் இஸ் வெரி கிளியர். டிரான்ஸ்போர்ட்டர் நடுவில் இருக்கான்ல, அவனை டிரான்ஸ்போர்ட் பண்றான், அவனை ஜெனரேட் பண்ண சொல்லு. அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் லாஜிக்ஸ். At the end of the day, e-waybill is required for the purpose of generation. That is the intention behind this discussion. And supplier, he himself can generate e-waybill if he is going to supply the goods, or the goods are going to move from his location completely. Transporter also can generate e-waybill, where first part of the information will be prescribed by the supplier, second part will be generated by the landlord, followed by a consolidated e-waybill may be generated by him. What is the validity of e-waybill? Based on kilometers. Normal cargo 100 kilometers per day, over dimensional cargos 20 kilometers per day. ODC means over dimensional cargo. Whenever e-waybill is generated, details are sent to the recipient. Recipient should accept or reject within 72 hours, failing which it is accepted or deemed it is rejected. These are all the cases where e-waybill is not required to be generated. If you transport 5 kgs of jewelry, e-waybill போட்டிங்கன்னா பின்னாடியே திருட வந்துருவான். மாவா இல்லையா? Think about it. Government is very clever. Sir, we are moving currency note tonight from here to here. திருடாவே வந்தாச்சு. 25 வருஷம் முன்னாடியே படம் எடுத்தாச்சு. என்னது திருடுறது எப்படின்னு. Okay. So government is very clear. If you move currency notes, not required. If you move jewelry, not required. So government is also, to the extent possible, they are. Come back here. Last part of our discussion, a very simple part of our discussion. Accounts and records. There are some accounts and records that need to be maintained by a registered person. Every registered person shall maintain the following documents in his principal place of business. So, every registered person shall maintain the following documents mentioned in this section in his principal place of business. What are those documents? When we go back, if they are a manufacturing concern, they should maintain a production record which discuss about how much goods they have manufactured. If in case they are going to be a organization involved in inward and outward supply of goods or services, they should maintain how much goods they are traders, means how much goods they bought, how much goods they sold. They should maintain the stock of goods, about their stock register they should maintain. A register for input tax credit availed and a register for output tax, how much payable, how it is paid. If you carefully read through this slide, எல்லாம் prescribed section, எல்லாம் prescribed record. If you are a manufacturer, எவ்வளவு goods manufacture பண்ணிருக்கீங்கன்னு ஒரு record வச்சுக்கணும். That's all, very simple. In case of inward or outward supply of goods, again, at what price you manufacture, at what price it is there. That's all. Inward or outward supply of goods or services. What price you bought, what price you sold. That record. Again, stock record. What stocks? Based on whatever stocks available, a stock record. ITC record. Input tax credit நிறைய எடுத்துக்கிறோம். Purchase, capital goods, input service. என்னது? For what purposes? For that purposes, it will be maintained. Similarly, these are all for registered person. Every owner or operator of a warehouse or a godown, whether he is registered or not, any owner, operator of a godown or warehouse, whether he is registered or not, he shall maintain a record of the details of consignor, consignee, what goods, from where it came, where it goes, all the relevant detail you shall maintain. If you carefully note, in the subsection, vidyasa irukku. இது 35(1), இது 35(2), okay. அதுக்கு கீழே இருக்கிறது 35(3), அப்புறம் 35(4), 35(5). சப்செக்ஷன்ஸ்லாம் உங்களுக்கு எக்ஸாம்க்கு வேண்டாம், இது போதும். Just sharing with you. If you go back here, shall maintain, registered person shall maintain சொல்லுவாங்க. இங்க வாங்களேன், whether he is registered or not னு சொல்லுவாங்க. If you are a owner of a warehouse, if you are a owner of a godown, you are required to maintain certain records irrespective of whether you are a registered person or an unregistered person under GST, as to what is the goods that is received by you, what is the goods that is stored in your place, who is the consignor, who is the consignee, that's all. Those information you should maintain, being a registered or unregistered person. Commissioner have powers to notify a class of person or to ask a person to maintain certain accounts, certain records. Commissioner may notify a class of taxable person to maintain certain records. Similarly, registered person, every registered person whose turnover during the financial year exceeds a prescribed limit. What is that prescribed limit, sir? Come to rule 80. Return la pona kadasila padipom. Annual return, audit, GST audit. Prescribed limit is 2 crores. Just I'm sharing to you now. If the registered person turnover during the financial year exceeds the prescribed limit, the assessee will get his books audited by a chartered accountant or cost accountant and submit a report for it. So my submission here is very simple. Or a set of mandatory records irukku. Production register, inward outward supply of goods or services that register, how much goods you sold, how much goods you purchased, how much services you made, how much services you procured, ITC, how much you have taken, stock register, output tax payable register. These are all should be maintained. Plus, in case of a owner of a godown, transporter, warehouse, they shall maintain details of what goods comes in, what goods goes out, who is the consignor for each goods, who is the consignee for each goods, what is the invoice number, this day, that day, location, எல்லாம் about that goods. And the goods வந்துட்டு போனதுக்கு எல்லா ட்ராக்கும் உங்கள்ட்ட இருக்கணும். Whether you are registered or not, we don't bother about you. Let me repeat it. Absolutely, we don't bother about you. All these records need to be maintained. Followed by a registered person turnover during the financial year exceeds the prescribed limit, then his accounts will be audited by a chartered accountant or a cost accountant and submitted. How long accounts need to be maintained? Accounts need to be maintained until expiry of all these records. How long need to be maintained? Until expiry of 72 months from the due date of filing annual return. From the due date of filing annual return, the record shall be maintained for a period of 72 months. 72 மாசம், which means roughly about how many years? 6 years. 6 years னு சொல்லல, 72 months தான் சொல்லிருக்காங்க. 6 years வேற, 72 months வேற. Make a note of that, because in the options you will get 6 years, 72 months. Select 72 months. Books and records shall be maintained from date of filing return, from the due date of filing annual return. For a financial year itself, annual return will be filed before what? Next year, December. அப்படிதானே படிச்சோம். 1920, financial year 1920, the due date of filing annual return is what? Your 31st December 2020. From 31st December 2020, 72 months. Understand? Most crucial element will be tested in exam. Followed by, in case any appeal assessee goes, anything, wherever he goes and fight, appeal, assessment, adjudication, until closing the appeal for a period of, after closing the appeal, after closing the appeal, for a period of 1 year, record need to be made. அந்த கேஸ் ஃபுல்லா முடிஞ்சதுக்கு அப்புறம் ஒரு வருஷம் ஒரு ரெக்கார்டை வச்சுக்கணும். This is a requirement of your time. So thankfully that sums up your discussions relating to records and documentation under GST. See, I do understand this is a pakka procedural discussion. Tomorrow morning கொஞ்சம் ப்ராப்ளமேட்டிக்கா இருக்கும், ப்ராப்ளமேட்டிக்கா இல்ல, ப்ராப்ளம் போடுற மாதிரி இருக்கும், ப்ராக்டிக்கலா இருக்கும். Tomorrow again evening session you will have that little pressure. இந்த டாபிக்ல எல்லாம் ஒரே ஒரு சேலஞ்ச் தான். எங்கேயாவது ஒன்று புரியாம விட்டுட்டீங்க, எனக்கு வராதுன்னு டிசைட் பண்ணிட்டீங்கன்னா அதுக்கப்புறம் கொஞ்சம் டஃப். பிகாஸ் லெட் மீ ரிப்பீட் இட், ப்ரொசீஜர் இதுதான் அந்த ஃபேக்டரிக்குள்ள நடக்குது, இதுதான் அந்த ட்ரேடிங் கன்சர்ன்குள்ள நடக்குது, இதுதான் அந்த சர்வீஸ் ஆர்கனைசேஷனுக்குள்ள நடக்குது. அதை நீங்க படிக்கிறீங்க. when you have went to that organization, saw that, no, you will get a comfort. As you have not went to that organization, never saw, and the working knowledge lack ஆகுது பாத்தீங்களா. Because of that reason you will find it this little difficult. The moment you get into it, if you are doing your pursuing your articles, if you are working for somebody or you interact with somebody who do business, இது மாதிரி தான் ரெக்கார்ட்ஸ் இருக்கான்னு they will say சேல்ஸ் ரெஜிஸ்டர்னு ஒன்று வச்சிருக்கோம், அவுட்வர்ட் சப்ளைன்னு ஒரு ரெஜிஸ்டர் வச்சிருக்கோம், இன்வர்ட் சப்ளைன்னு ஒரு ரெஜிஸ்டர் வச்சிருக்கோம், ஐடிசிக்கு தனியா ஒரு ரெஜிஸ்டர் வச்சிருக்கோம், which means they are maintaining these records. So this sums up our discussion. So with this note, we'll wind up today's discussion. Tomorrow morning we'll meet and take a payment for taxes under GST. As usual, 2 splits you have. Morning a separate discussion, evening a separate discussion. Thank you all for effective and patient listening. Thank you.